So in this video, we are going to explore how to calculate the correlation between two variables and the regression analysis in Excel using a scatter plot. For that, we have considered this data where X represents the height of a student in a centimeter, where Y represents the height of student's father in centimeter, and the size of this data is 25. Before moving in Excel, let's start with the brief explanation of these two terms. So beginning with the term correlation, it consists of two words. One is co and another is a relation, and it defines the relationship between two variables. So with the help of correlation, one can understand the changes in a one variable are linked to the change in another variable and how strong the relationship between them. So there are three types of a correlation. One is a positive correlation, second is a negative correlation, and the third is no correlation. First one is a positive correlation. So it means both the variables are moving in a same direction. So if one variable is increasing, the other is also increasing. For example, you can observe that the values of the variables are increasing. At the same time, the values of y variable is also increasing. So this indicates the positive correlation between the variables. Or you can consider the relationship between the amount of rainfall and the growth of the plants in a garden. So let's assume that it has a positive correlation. So it means as the amount of rainfall increases, the growth of the plant is also increases. In such a case, the graph shows such type of a trend line. Means if the variable x is increasing, the y is also increasing. So we will get an increasing line in that case. So the next is a negative correlation. So negative correlation means the values of two variables are moving in an opposite direction. So if one variable increases, then the corresponding second variable decreases. For example, the values of x in this case is increasing while the values of y are decreasing. So it indicates the negative correlation. Additionally, consider the correlation between price and the demand for the product. So if the price of an item decreases, then the demand for that product will increase. For example, when Apple launched the iPhone 14 with the 256 GB RAM, the initial price is around rupees 89,000. But the current price for this phone is rupees 79,900. So due to the price reduction, the demand for the purchasing iPhone 14 increases. In such a case, the graph has a decreasing curve as shown in this figure. So whenever the price is decreasing, the demand for that product will increase. Next is a no correlation. So when one variable does not affect the other. For example, there is a no correlation between the size of shoes and the intelligence of the group of people. In such a case, the trend line is a constant. So we can find the linear correlation between the considered two variables by finding the correlation coefficient. So in this case, we are going to predict the Karl-Pearson correlation coefficient, which is denoted by R. And that is calculated by this formula, where this represents the covariance between x and y. Sigma x represents the standard deviation of x. Sigma y represents the standard deviation of y. In short, the range of the correlation coefficient is from -1 to 1. And when the value of correlation coefficient is equal to 1, so it indicates the perfect positive correlation. And if its value is -1, so it indicates the perfect negative correlation between the variables. So if it is equal to 0, so it indicates the no linear relationship, but it may be possible there is a non-linear relationship. So this correlation coefficient can be easily calculated in the Excel by using a one single function. Firstly, we have a sample of variables in a column A that represents the student's height, and in column B represents their father's height. Now we will find the correlation between these two variables. For that we will use the correl function. So simply choose an empty cell. Suppose you can take E2. Then type the formula is equal to CORREL. So this function is used to find the correlation coefficient between the two data set. Then open bracket. Now we need to substitute the two arrays. So one is in a column 1, that is A, and second we need to take the data from the column B. So this data starts from the second row till 26th row, means total number of elements in this column is a 25. So then by clicking on a A2 and dragging it to down without lifting your hand, we can select this data, and this is the entry for the array 1. Followed by a comma, then select the data from the column B, just click on a B2 and drag this till B26. Then close this bracket and press enter in order to get the correlation between the data. So this is the value of R. Now you can observe that the correlation coefficient value is greater than 0. Therefore, in these two variables, the correlation is positive. Next, we will visualize this data using the scatter plot. For that, firstly, we need to select the data in these two columns. After that, navigate to insert. Then look into the chart tab and find the scatter plot. Click on it, and after that click on this. So you will get the scatter plot of these two data set. But sometimes it happens that the default labels might not suit you. So you want to adjust this displayed labels as per your desiredness. For example, our scatter plot displayed label on a y-axis range from 0 to 200. However, we want to change it from 140 to 200. To do this, simply move your cursor on the y-axis label and double click on it. So you will see that there is a rectangular fill on the axis data. After that, left click on the mouse and then click to the format axis. Then on the right side, you will get this type of a screen. In the format axis, you need to go with the axis option, not with the text option. In axis option, move to the last option, that is again named as a axis option. In this, set the minimum value as 140 and keep the maximum value as 200 and then press enter. So you will see the changes reflected immediately in the chart. Similarly, if you want to adjust on the x-axis, follow the same procedure. So by customizing the axis label on your scatter plot, so this simple adjustment can make your visualization more accurate and meaningful. Now let's visualize the correlation between the data. So for that we will create a trend line. So for that, move your cursor on the top right of your chart corner where you will see a plus sign. Click on it to reveal various chart elements. So here we have an axis title option, as well as we can also click on the trend line. We can rename this Excel title. So on the horizontal axis, this data is for the X variable, whereas On the vertical line, this data is for the y variable. From the trend line, you can see that this is a line is an increasing order. This also signifies that the correlation between these two data is positive. Next is the regression analysis. So regression analysis is a procedure in a stat that is used to find the relationship between one dependent variable and one or more independent variable. It means it is the study of the nature of relationship between the variables so that one can able to predict the unknown values of one variable for the known values of another variable. So in the regression, one variable is considered as a independent variable, whereas the second variable is considered as the dependent one. It is generally used in a prediction, forecasting, and in many fields of economics and finance. Next is a linear regression. So when the dependent variable moves in a fixed proportion of the movement of independent variable. It means when xi's are moving as well as y is also moving but in a fixed amount. So in that case, we have a straight line in a graph which aims the best fit of the data and hence describe the linear relationship between the variables. Mathematically, the relation between the two variables x and y in a linear regression form is expressed by this form. So this is called as a line of regression of y on x. So in which we are taking x as an independent variable and y as a dependent variable. And in this case, b is called as regression coefficient of y on x. So since it is a straight line, so we will get a line like this way. So in this case, A is called as the y-intercept of the regression line y on x and B is basically slope of the regression line. Similarly, we can write the line of regression of x on y. So in this case, we will treat this as a y-axis and this is as a x-axis. And x is written as a plus by where y is the independent variable and x is the dependent variable. And here b is called as the slope of the regression line of x on y or we can also call it as regression coefficient of x on y. So let's try to calculate these regression line in a Excel. Moving to the regression analysis, we will start with y on x. So click on a chart area, then the plus sign, then select trend line, click on the symbol for more options, then go to the more options. After that, you will get a trend line options. So move to the chart type icon, click on this one. So from here, if you want to change the trend line, whether you want a linear, logarithmic or any, you can go with that one. But right now we are working with a linear regression. Then scroll down and click on display equation on a chart. So this equation represents the regression line y on a x. You can also increase the font of this one. Go to the home tab by selecting this one and then increase the size. And in this case, the 1.0415 represents the regression coefficient y on a x. It is important to note that when you are working on Excel, the first array is always displayed on the horizontal axis, and the second array is always displayed on the vertical axis. Now if you want to switch these two axes, we want a regression line x on a y. For that, first array should be from the y variable, then the second array should be from the x variable. In order to do so, we need to copy the column A, copy this column A and paste in column C. So once you do that, now we will repeat the same procedure. We will display the scatter plot of y and x. So for that, select these two columns data, then move to the insert tab, go to the chart, select scatter, customize the x-axis labels, double click on this one, move to the axis option. So I want this data displayed from 140 to 200. Then press enter. Now move to the chart area, go to the plus sign, click on axis title and trend line, and in trend line move to the more options, scroll down, display equation on this chart. So here we are getting this equation. So you can drag this equation on the top of the chart area. In this case, the horizontal axis title is a y variable, whereas vertical axis title is a capital X. So this regression line is x on a y, but by default it is showing that y is depending on the independent variable x. Now we will manually edit this one. So for that, click on this equation. So in place of y, write x, and in place of x, write y. So you can increase the font of this one. You can also write the title for this chart, regression line x on y. In the previous case, we have calculated the regression line y on x. Definitely this is a capital Y variable and a capital X variable. And same for this one. So let's try to answer these questions with the help of the calculation performed in the Excel. The first question is the correlation coefficient of x and y that we have calculated into E2 cell. So answer is 0.630776. Now, is this correlation as positive, negative, perfect negative, or a no correlation? So, this is a positive relation. So, it's a positive correlation between x and y. Next question is write the regression equation of x on y. So, x on y that displayed in this first chart. So, the regression equation of x on y is equal to x is equal to 0.382y plus 107.1. Next question is a regression equation of y on x that is given in a second chart. So that is equal to y is equal to 1.0415x minus 6.5206. Next question is what is the regression coefficient of x on y? This is also written as bxy. So what will be the answer in this case? So we need to find first what is the line equation of x and y. So here it is. So now we will take the coefficient of y, and that is the answer for this question. So in this case the answer is 0.382. Next question is the regression coefficient of y on a x. So first we will find the regression equation of y on a x, and after that find the coefficient of x. So in this case the answer is byx is equal to 1.0415. The last question is, for x is equal to 172, what is the estimated value of y? So we need to estimate the value of y for the value of x. So we need the regression equation y on a x. So now here just substitute the value of x is equal to 172 and find the corresponding value of y. In this case we are getting answer as 172.6174. So this is the answer for the last question. So for practice, you can consider this data and after that calculate the correlation between x and y, and then find the regression line y on x as well as x on y. So when you calculate these parameters, so in that case you will get a correlation coefficient as minus 0.3028. So it indicates the negative correlation between these two variables, and regression line y on x is equal to this one. Now for the regression line x on y, comment below.